He dismissed his servants and conveyance and fell into step beside me. Seeking to console me, he pointed out the advantages of striving for worldly success. But I heard him listlessly. My heart was repeating, Lahari Mahasaya, I cannot live without seeing you. Our path took us to the edge of a tranquil field, where the rays of the late afternoon sun were crowning the tall ripple of the wild grass. We paused in admiration. There in the field, only a few yards from us, the form of my great Guru suddenly appeared. Bhagpati, you are too hard on your employee. His voice was resonant in our astounded ears. He vanished as mysteriously as he had come. On my knees I was exclaiming, Lahari Mahasaya, Lahari Mahasaya. For a few moments your father was motionless with stupefaction. Abhinash, not only do I give you leave, but I give myself leave to start for Banaras tomorrow. I must know this great Lahari Mahasaya, who is able to materialize himself at will in order to intercede for you. I will take my wife and ask this master to initiate us in his spiritual path. Will you guide us to him? Of course, joy filled me at the miraculous answer to my prayer and the quick favorable turn of events. The next evening your parents and I entrained for Banaras. Reaching there on the following day, we took a horse cart for some distance, then had to walk through narrow lanes to my Guru's secluded home. Entering his little parlour, we bowed before the master and locked in his habitual lotus posture. He blinked his piercing eyes and levelled them on your father. Bhagpati, you are too hard on your employee. His words were the same as those he had used 2 days before in the grassy field. He added, I am glad that you have permitted Abhinash to visit me and that you and your wife have accompanied him. To their joy, he initiated your parents in the spiritual practice of Kriya Yoga. Your father and I, as brother disciples, have been close friends since the memorable day of the vision. Lahari Mahasaya took a definite interest in your own birth. Your life shall surely be linked with his own. The Master's blessing never fails. Lahari Mahasaya left this world shortly after I had entered it. His picture in an ornate frame always graced a family altar in the various cities to which father was transferred by his office. Many a morning and evening found mother and me meditating before an improvised shrine, offering flowers dipped in fragrant sandalwood paste, with frankincense and myrrh. As well as our united devotions, we honored the divinity that had found full expression in Lahari Mahasaya. His picture had a surpassing influence over my life. As I grew, the thought of the Master grew with me. In meditation, I would often see his photographic image emerge from its small frame and, taking a living form, sit before me. When I attempted to touch the feet of his luminous body, it would change and again become the picture. As childhood slipped into boyhood, I found Lahari Mahasaya transformed in my mind from a little image cribbed in a frame to a living, enlightening presence. I frequently prayed to him in moments of trial or confusion, finding within me his solacing direction. At first I grieved because he was no longer physically living. As I began to discover his secret omnipresence, I lamented no more. He had often written to those of his disciples who were over anxious to see him, Why come to view my flesh and bones, when I am ever within range of your kutastha, spiritual sight? At about the age of 8, I was blessed with a wonderful healing through the photograph of Lahari Mahasaya. This experience gave intensification to my love. While at our family estate in Ichhapur, Bengal, I was stricken with Asiatic cholera. My life was despaired of. The doctors could do nothing. At my bedside, mother frantically motioned me to look at Lahari Mahasaya's picture on the wall above my head. Bowed to him mentally, she knew I was too feeble even to lift my hands in salutation. If you really show your devotion and inwardly kneel before him, your life will be spared. I gazed at his photograph and saw there a blinding light enveloping my body and the entire room. My nausea and other uncontrollable symptoms disappeared. I was well. At once I felt strong enough to bend over and touch Mother's feet in appreciation of her immeasurable faith in her Guru. Mother pressed her head repeatedly against the little picture. O omnipresent Master, I thank thee that thy light hath healed my son. I realized that she too had witnessed the luminous blaze through which I had instantly recovered from a usually fatal disease. One of my most precious possessions is that same photograph given to Father by Lahiri Mahasaya himself. It carries a holy vibration. The picture had a miraculous origin. I heard the story from Father's brother disciple Kali Kumar Roy. It appears that the master had an aversion to being photographed. Over his protest, a group picture was once taken of him and a group of devotees, including Kali Kumar Roy. It was an amazed photographer who discovered that the plate, which had clear images of all the disciples, revealed nothing more than a blank space in the center where he had reasonably expected to find the outlines of Lahiri Mahasaya. The phenomenon was widely discussed. A student who was an expert photographer, Gangadhar Babu, boasted that the fugitive figure would not escape him. The next morning, as the Guru sat in lotus posture on a wooden bench with a screen behind him, Gangadhar Babu arrived with his equipment. Taking every precaution for success, he greedily exposed 12 plates. On each one he soon found the imprint of the wooden bench and screen, but once again the master's form was missing. With tears and shattered pride, Gangadhar Babu sought out his Guru. It was many hours before Lahiri Mahasaya broke his silence with a pregnant comment. "I am spirit. Can your camera reflect the omnipresent invisible?" "I see it cannot, but holy sir, I lovingly desire a picture of your bodily temple. My vision has been narrow. Until today I did not realize that in you the spirit fully dwells. Come then, tomorrow morning I will gladly pose for you." Again the photographer focused his camera. This time the sacred figure, not cloaked with mysterious imperceptibility, was sharp on the plate. The photograph is reproduced in this book. Lahiri Mahasaya's fair features of a universal caste hardly suggest to what race he belonged. The joy of God communion is slightly revealed in his enigmatic smile. His eyes, half open to denote a nominal interest in the outer world, are also half closed, indicating his absorption in inner bliss. Oblivious of the poor lures of the earth, he was fully awake at all times to the spiritual problems of seekers who approached for his bounty. Shortly after my healing through the potency of the Guru's picture, I had an influential spiritual vision. Sitting on my bed one morning, I fell into a deep reverie. What is behind the darkness of closed eyes? This probing thought came powerfully into my mind. An immense flash of light at once manifested to my inner gaze. Divine shapes of saints sitting in meditation posture in mountain caves formed like miniature cinema pictures on the large screen of radiance within my forehead. "Who are you?" I spoke aloud. "We are the Himalayan yogis." The celestial response is difficult to describe. My heart was thrilled. "Ah, I longed to go to the Himalayas and become like you." The vision vanished, but the silvery beams expanded in ever-widening circles to infinity. "What is this wondrous glow?" "I am Ishwar. I am light." The voice was as murmuring clouds. "I want to be one with thee." Out of the slow dwindling of my divine ecstasy, I salvaged a permanent legacy of inspiration to seek God. He is eternal, ever new joy. This memory persisted long after the day of rapture. Another early recollection is outstanding, and literally so, for I bear the scar to this day. My elder sister Uma and I were seated in the early morning under a neem tree in our Gorakhpur compound. She was helping me in my study of a Bengali primer. What time I could spare my gaze from the nearby parrots eating ripe margosa fruit. Uma complained of a boil on her leg and fetched a jar of ointment. I smeared a bit of the salve on my forearm. "Why do you use medicine on a healthy arm?" "Well, sis, I feel I am going to have a boil tomorrow. I am testing your ointment on the spot where the boil will appear." "You little liar!" "Sis, don't call me a liar until you see what happens in the morning." Indignation filled me. Uma, unimpressed, thrice repeated her taunt. An adamant resolution sounded in my voice as I made slow reply. "By the power of will in me, I say that tomorrow I shall have a fairly large boil in this exact place on my arm, and your boil shall swell to twice its present size." Morning found me with a stalwart boil on the indicated spot. The dimensions of Uma's boil had doubled.